Hello and welcome to Legal Basics with Cyro Law Global, and my name is Tian. Now, in the recent past, there's been a lot of sensation about the running mate. First, people were waiting with bated breath. So today we're going to discuss a very important topic, which is the running mate, who will in turn become the deputy president and the deputy governor. With us today is a colleague of mine, comes very highly recommended. I will let him introduce himself.
Hi, my name is James Tugay. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, a partner at Munyao Mudhaman Kashindi Advocates, and an arbitrator.
Just explain who is a running mate, and eventually when they become a deputy president and a deputy governor, how does that work?
Okay, so the phrase running mate really is based on the fact that two people are running together. So I think in a way even the presidential candidate is a running mate to the deputy presidential candidate. But more, it's used more to refer to the deputy presidential candidate and the candidate for deputy governor, obviously, because they are then picked by someone who's already running to be their running mate.
Okay.
So the term as used really is to refer to those offices where you have two individuals running on a joint ticket and who are elected together.
People have also been using it socially to know whether the other person is partnered. We will not ask James about his running mate, not today, but you can write. So, James, what are the qualifications for a running mate for president?
So the qualifications really are the same as those of the person running for president. So the candidate for president and the candidate for deputy president in terms of their academic qualifications, in terms of their moral requirements for them to be able to run, in terms of other formal requirements such as citizenship and all that. It is the same, and you'll find also for the governor and the deputy governor are the same. And the reason for this is because these people who run as deputy president or deputy governor can assume the office of governor or president when the president or the governor becomes unavailable for various reasons, including death, resignation, and such other.
There's the issue of political parties. Does the running mate, either for governor or for president, have to belong to the same political party as the president and governor, or they could belong to others, or they could be from an independent party?
They could belong to the same political party, or they could belong to the same coalition of parties. And we have seen many examples of individuals who do not belong to the same political party running together either for governor or for president, obviously with the deputy in each case. Just perhaps the best example would be the very first election we had under this new constitution in 2013,
Yes.
when the two presidential candidates that finished first and second actually both had running mates who did not belong to the same political party as them. So you had the current president, Uhuru Kenyatta, running with William Ruto, who is currently the deputy president still. But at that point, Uhuru Kenyatta belonged to TNA,
Okay.
and William Ruto belonged to URP. You also had Raila Odinga running on an ODM ticket with a running mate, Kalonzo Musyoka, who was then, who is a Wiper party member. But you also saw a similar arrangement for Nairobi governor.
Yes.
In 2013, where ODM nominated the candidate for governor, but within the same coalition code, the candidate for deputy governor came from Wiper.
Just to inform the voter, on the ballot, does it indicate the parties that the two belong to, or just the one that is the main person?
So where they belong to different parties, the party will be shown for the candidate for governor, the candidate for president.
Okay.
So using the same examples I've mentioned, the ballot for that had President Kenyatta's photo and party, and then the running mate's name only, had TNA as the party.
Okay.
And similarly, the Raila Kalonzo ticket had ODM as the party.
Before the new constitution 2010, we used to have the office of the vice president.
Yes.
And now we have the office of the deputy president, who are, we would say, both assistant presidents, in a way. I would just want you to probably just differentiate between the vice president under the old constitution and the deputy president under the current constitution.
Two things that stick out completely if you compare the vice president under the old constitution and the deputy president now is one, whether the president can sack his deputy or his assistant.
Money for life.
So under the old constitution, the president could at any point sack the vice president. And you'll see that historically, you'll see that, for instance, President Moi served with a number of vice presidents.
He really utilized that provision.
Yes, and even President Kenyatta, although circumstances would have been different because under President Kenyatta, the first vice president actually resigned. But you'll see that there are many more vice presidents than presidents in those first two terms. And then since the new constitution, we've only had one president and also one deputy president elected under the current constitution. Obviously, the constitution came into force before President Kibaki retired. The second important thing is what happens when the president ceases to hold office, either out of death, resignation, or such other causes, or if he becomes incapacitated. And so under the old system, the vice president would hold office for a period of time within which he would arrange elections. And this actually practically happened when President Kenyatta died, and President Moi held office for a period of time to arrange a by-election for president. Under the current law, if the president dies after he's in office, then the deputy president assumes power as the president for the remainder of the term.
Yes.
So he becomes the president without a need for further election.
Aside from that, I would just like to, we've seen a lot of politics when people say that the work that was assigned to the deputy president was moved to another person. So I would like you to expound on what does the law provide as regards the job description to the role of this deputy president?
Yeah, so I guess, I don't know if it's going to sound like an oxymoron, because the deputy president actually has a lot of work, but none of it is, not much of it is specific work that he can perform on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
A lot of it depends on, his working relationship with the president, how much hands-on the president prefers to be, and all of that. So if you look at the constitution and the duties of the powers of the deputy president, other than being the principal assistant to the president, which basically obviously means the president assigns him work, he helps the president in the discharge of his functions. There's one specific function that is assigned to the deputy president, which is to be the chairperson of the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, which is a forum for the national government and county governments to discuss budgetary policy issues. And that is his function, which he directly performs. It's not assigned by the president. So that's the one function he performs all the time. More importantly, though, it's when the president becomes either temporarily unavailable or incapacitated. Then by operation of the law, the deputy president then becomes sort of, we could call it acting president. I think we've seen an instance once, and that's a different situation. So it's either in the absence of the president, or when the president becomes, for some reason, unable to discharge his functions, so temporarily incapacitated, maybe he's in a coma at the hospital, or if the president determines that for a period of time he wants the deputy president to act as the president, maybe he really just wants to take some time off, and he wants to, for 2 weeks, he doesn't want to bother himself. Really?
How luxurious.
So if he determines that for this period of time I want him to be the acting president, then he can appoint the deputy as an acting president. But for a period when the deputy president is only acting, there are certain functions he cannot perform of the president. So he cannot, for instance, appoint cabinet secretaries and fire those who are appointed by the president. He cannot appoint ambassadors. He cannot exercise the power of mercy. There are many functions of the president that an acting president, being a deputy who is acting as president just for a temporary period, cannot perform. But if the president then completely leaves office, either through resignation, death, or any other thing, and the deputy president becomes the substantive president, then he takes over all the functions of the president.
This is interesting, though. So a president can just take a break and say, hey, I'm tired, I need a break, I need a little bit time to holiday. So let me ask, is there a time limit that this president can appoint the deputy because he's taking a break?
Not really, but knowing obviously the nature of politics and what might happen if you leave your office for someone for a long period of time, it's really unlikely that a president, for no good reason, is going to appoint the deputy as acting president for a period of time. We've seen it happen once when the president had to go to the ICC to deal with this case. And really, it was more of a show of pride
Yes.
and something to do with the sovereignty of the country, that he did not want to go there as the president of Kenya.
Yes.
So he found a way to say, I'm going there as an individual in my
While there's
individual
another
capacity.
president, yeah.
And there will be someone who will be the acting president in Kenya. Over the years, if you watch, for instance, the presidential debates in the US or the vice presidential debates in the US, there's a lot of talk usually about the qualifications of the person running for vice president in the US.
And I think it's an important
in many
conversation.
instances, I think the candidate for vice president has led to a ticket failing in the US. Perhaps the most recent that most people would remember is McCain. A lot of McCain's failure probably was because of his choice of vice president, because of her personal nature and certain scandals that then she got involved in.
And rightly so, because this person could be your president.
Yeah, because the question normally is your running mate ready to assume the office of the president tomorrow?
Yes.
Should you die?
Yes.
And I think more and more Kenya will move in that direction. Obviously, we've seen our neighbors get a president. They did not elect as president.
Yeah.
And so I think more and more it will hit home that when we elect a deputy president, we are electing a potential president. And potentially for almost 5 years, really, because the president can become unavailable at any point from the beginning of his term.
Leaving the next day.
Yes, but to answer your question now, if there's a fallout between them due to the imbalance of power, ordinarily the president would enjoy, the deputy president would get the shorter end of the stick, to put it that way. We've seen this happen in counties. We've probably seen a bit of this at the national level now, with certain complaints by the deputy president about, in his words, some of his functions being assigned to a cabinet secretary, or, and I believe what he meant at that point is there is a cabinet secretary who seems to be the principal assistant to the president now, as opposed to him. But it's really not a question of any specific function assigned to him by the law being given to someone, because other than the one we pointed out, which he still performs regularly, there's really no specific functions.
A deputy governor and a deputy president cannot be fired by the president?
No, they cannot be fired.
Can they resign though?
Yes, they can resign. Obviously, they can resign if they feel dissatisfied. And obviously, you've had calls in this election cycle when the deputy president complains about how he perceives the president has treated him. You've had certain people ask him, why didn't you resign? Why are you earning a salary if you don't have work?
Yes.
So it's obviously a choice. A lot of people have been pointing to the first vice president of Kenya who resigned when he fell out with the president and felt like he could not continue to serve in that government. But, the considerations go beyond that. They are political considerations. They're considerations of
Are you perceived
power,
to be working? Are you perceived as powerful?
Yes.
But also, now that you mentioned a salary, so if I've fallen out with the president and I am no longer getting work, but I'm still in office, is the government an obligation to keep paying me?
Yes, because you continue to be the deputy president or the deputy governor.
Do I keep enjoying all the attached, the cars, the security, the offices?
Yes, you do. Obviously, because of the kind of power that your boss would have, there might be attempts to frustrate that as well. Not speaking authoritatively, but from what certain people have been complaining about.
Okay.
You've seen some of the deputy president supporters complaining about something that happened in Mombasa at the residence of the deputy president there. That he was probably not allowed entry there at some point.
Yes.
Ordinarily you would not expect, for instance, that a deputy president would have any trouble traveling out of the country. but you've seen it happen at some point that the deputy president had to wait for a very long time to leave the country when he wanted to travel.
Yes.
But more so with deputy governors, there have been instances in the first term, for instance, of the Mombasa County government. There was a fallout between the governor and the deputy governor. And there were things that happened that the deputy governor feels were done by the governor to make it impossible for her to really discharge her functions or to even access her office. More recently, there has been a fallout between the governor and the deputy governor in Makueni after working very well for a long time. In fact, they were used as an example of how governors should work with their deputies.
Marriage.
But, you know, because they join different political formations, there has been some trouble there. So these things happen. We've seen it at the national level. We've seen it at the county level. Unfortunately, there's not much the deputy can do when this happens.
Just sits there and collects a salary.
Yes, but obviously, should the president or the deputy or the governor, become unavailable, they might well become governor immediately. And you know, so for
whether
instance,
they've fallen out or not.
Yes, and so in Nairobi, for instance, someone might say Polycarp they lost a chance to be governor.
Yeah.
Because he resigned.
Oh yes.
And then Mike Sonko was impeached.
That was too soon.
In Kiambu County, there's a governor now who was a deputy governor who assumed office when the governor was impeached. In Nyeri County, there have been 2 deaths of governors, and the deputies in those instances have taken over as governors. In Bomet, the governor died and the deputy took over. So, you know.
So it has actually happened a lot.
Yes.
So what happens to the governor and the president once the deputy has
resigned? County, I think, in Northeastern, where a governor was impeached.
Yes.
The deputy governor took over. The governor was brought back by the court. After this guy had served as governor for a while.
He seemed to be enjoying being governor. But now, if I'm a president or a governor and my deputy resigns, what recourse do I have in law?
So if the deputy governor or the deputy president resigns, the president, the president may nominate a new person to his deputy president, and then have it go through the National Assembly, much the same way cabinet secretaries are appointed. So initially, you know, even for governors and their deputies, same thing. The courts have clarified that what you might do in that instance is to nominate and have the county assembly approve. So you remember when Polycarp resigned? Yes. For a long time, Nairobi did not have a deputy governor.
All right, so just to wrap it up, and probably this is unlikely to happen, but our constitution limits a presidential term to 2 terms.
Yes.
And is there a legal provision that stops a president from being a deputy president?
No, so this is really interesting because obviously there's that, we have to think of it from the backdrop of when the president becomes unavailable, the deputy takes over. And there's also a presidential term limit of, you know, 2 terms. Yeah. So assume, for instance, that, you know, the current president and his deputy were still in very good terms, and they decided they're going to swap positions. Yeah. So
I will carry your briefcase
you
now.
Can't be deputy president for more than 2 terms. You can't be president for more than 2 terms. But the law does not say you can't move from one position to the other. In fact, clearly, a deputy president can run for president after being deputy. So the question is, can a president then run for deputy after being president? So the law does not specifically limit it. If you think of it in terms of what happens then, if you end up being deputy president, then that second president dies, you've already served your 2 terms.
You can't serve
so you can't serve a 3rd term as president. Same with the deputy governor, really, and the governor. But there's something interesting about what happens when a president dies, or a president resigns, or otherwise the office falls vacant, when there is no deputy president, or when the deputy president cannot assume the office of president.
Oh, so there's a possibility.
So there's a possibility that you have a deputy president who cannot assume the office of president, in which case the speaker of the National Assembly will act, and an actual by-election will be held. So if you think of it in that sense, then it's probably possible for a president to argue that even if I become deputy president, if that eventuality comes,
I cannot assume
and then
office.
my boss dies, I will be one of those people who cannot assume the office, and so we will have a by-election.
Politics is sweet, and we see people coming back. Never say never. Maybe we'll see some of these things in the coming elections. Thank you so much for making time to come. If the viewers want to reach you to ask questions about this topic, how can they reach you?
Oh, first, thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome.
For the viewers, as I said when we started, I am a partner at Munyao Mundaman Kashindi Advocates. We are located at AEA Plaza on Valley Road. You could reach me in the office. We have a website where you can get my personal contacts.
If you have any questions for us, but it's not just questions, even compliments, even complaints, even asking questions about the running mate. I know you want to ask those questions. You can write to us at info@cyroglobal.com. That's info@cyroglobal.com. You can also write to us through our Gmail address, which is cyroglobal@gmail.com. As always, thank you for watching. Share with your friends and your family and your circle. And keep well. Bye-bye.